Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The world was once alive with magic. In the days when gods roamed the earth, their blessings flowed freely, filling the air with an energy that made the impossible commonplace. Cities stood tall with soaring spires that seemed to touch the heavens, and ancient forests whispered secrets only the most powerful could understand. But those days were long gone. The gods had left, and with them, magic had slowly faded into legend. Human civilization had begun its inevitable decline. Where once great empires flourished, only ruins remained, their grandeur diminished by centuries of erosion and neglect. The world was broken, and most believed it would never be whole again. Ryan didn't share that belief. As an archaeologist, he had spent his life chasing the remnants of the old world, clinging to the hope that something, anything, could bring back the magic. It wasn't just a professional pursuit for him, it was personal. He had grown up in the dying days of magic, when the last embers still flickered before fading out completely. His family had suffered because of it. His mother, a once powerful mage, had lost her ability to heal when the magic died, and his father's work, dependent on magical energy, became obsolete. Ryan had watched his family's slow collapse as a boy, helpless to stop it. That memory drove him now that he stood at the edge of a vast expanse of crumbled stone and overgrown greenery, the remnants of a once mighty temple complex. The Temple of Origins, as it was known, lay in ruins. Massive stone pillars lay shattered on the ground, vines snaking their way through the cracks, as if nature itself had reclaimed what humanity had abandoned. In front of him, a weathered archway stood as the last vestige of the temple's former glory, a lonely sentinel guarding the secrets within. "This is it," Ryan said softly, more to himself than to the small team behind him. They had been on this expedition for months, searching through ancient maps and dusty archives, following rumors and forgotten texts. And now, they stood before the heart of it all. "You really think this place holds the key?" asked Elena, one of his closest colleagues, and a skeptic when it came to anything magical. "It looks like nothing more than a bunch of rocks." Ryan gave her a tired smile. "Everything important is buried beneath the surface. Trust me." Elena shrugged, adjusting her pack as she followed him into the temple's broken entrance. Behind them, the rest of the team moved carefully, their eyes scanning the surroundings. They weren't just archaeologists, some were adventurers, others hired muscle. Ryan had learned long ago that when you ventured into the forgotten places of the world, danger was always nearby. Bandits, rival treasure hunters, or worse, ancient traps left behind by those who had long since perished. The interior of the temple was dark, the once grand halls now little more than shadowed corridors filled with debris. The air was thick with the smell of damp stone and decay. As they walked deeper, their footsteps echoed off the walls, mingling with the occasional drip of water from somewhere unseen. Ryan held up his lantern, casting flickering light across the walls. Faded murals covered the stone, depicting scenes from an era when gods and mortals mingled freely. Worshippers knelt before towering figures, their hands outstretched as the gods bestowed gifts of magic upon them. Ryan's heart quickened. This was it, proof that the gods had once walked this world. But more importantly, it was a reminder that the magic had been given, and what had been given could perhaps be returned. "Over here," Ryan called, stepping toward a large stone altar in the center of what appeared to be the main hall. Unlike the rest of the temple, this part had been relatively untouched by time. The altar was carved with intricate runes, still faintly glowing in the dim light. Elena joined him, her eyes wide. "Is that?" Ryan nodded, running his fingers over the cool stone. "It's a magical conduit. The gods used this to channel their power into the world. She frowned. But it's broken. You really think you can fix it? He glanced at her, determination hardening his features. I have to try. The others in the group spread out, exploring the room with cautious curiosity. They had all heard stories of the ancient gods and their temples, but seeing it firsthand was something else entirely. One of the mercenaries, a gruff man named Doran, approached the altar with a mix of awe and greed in his eyes. So this is where the power came from? He asked, his hand hovering over the glowing runes. You really think you can make magic come back? Because that would make all of us rich beyond our wildest dreams. Ryan gave him a sharp look. This isn't about wealth. If we misuse this power, it could destroy what's left of the world. Doran sneered. You sound just like the stories. Magic is dangerous, it's not to be trifled with. But if we're the ones controlling it, who cares? We'll be the new gods. Before Ryan could respond, Doran's hand came down on the altar, pressing into one of the runes. A sharp, sizzling sound filled the air, and suddenly the room was alive with energy. Ancient mechanisms whirred to life, and the faint glow of the runes intensified, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Doran, stop! Ryan shouted, but it was too late. With a deafening crack, the ground beneath the altar split open, revealing a hidden chamber below. The floor trembled as something ancient and powerful began to stir. Ryan could feel it, magic, wild and untamed, leaking back into the world. But it wasn't controlled. Not yet. Doran's eyes widened as the energy surged, and he stumbled backward, fear replacing the greed on his face. What did I do? Ryan grabbed him by the arm and pulled him away from the altar. You triggered the defenses. This place was designed to protect the power, not give it away. Elena rushed over, her face pale. Ryan, we need to get out of here. Now. But Ryan shook his head. No. We're too close. I need to see what's down there. He peered into the chasm below the altar. A faint blue glow pulsed from within, beckoning him closer. It was the core of the conduit, the heart of the magic that once flowed through the world. If he could repair it, he could bring it back. I'm going down, he said, grabbing a rope from his pack and securing it to a nearby pillar. Elena stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Are you crazy? You don't even know what's down there. That's why I need to find out, he replied, already lowering himself into the darkness. As he descended, the air grew colder, and the hum of magic became more pronounced. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest, excitement mixing with fear. He had spent his entire life chasing this moment, and now that it was within reach, he couldn't turn back. When his feet touched the ground, he found himself standing in a small chamber, the walls covered in ancient symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. In the center of the room was a large crystal, fractured and dim, but still pulsing with faint energy. This is it, Ryan whispered to himself. The core. He reached out, his fingers brushing the surface of the crystal. The moment he made contact, a jolt of energy shot through him, and images flooded his mind, visions of the world as it once was, filled with magic and wonder. He saw the gods, towering figures who had once ruled over the earth, and he saw their departure, driven away by a force too terrible to comprehend. The crystal was broken, just like the world above. But as Ryan studied it, he realized something else. It could be repaired. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be quick, but with the right tools and knowledge, he could restore it. Climbing back up to the main hall, Ryan found Elena waiting for him, her face a mix of worry and relief. Well, she asked. What did you find? Ryan smiled, his mind already racing with possibilities. The key to everything. Ryan wasted no time. The discovery of the core had sparked a fire in him that refused to die down. The crystal was damaged, but it wasn't beyond repair. He'd spent years studying the remnants of magical civilizations, learning their languages, their techniques, and their mistakes. Everything he'd learned told him that magic wasn't gone, it had just been sealed away, like a river dammed at its source. The conduit was that source, and if he could unblock it, the magic would flow again. Back in the main chamber, he gathered the team. Elena stood beside him, still eyeing the altar warily, while the others listened with varying degrees of interest. "I've seen the core," Ryan began, his voice low but steady. "It's fractured, but it's not destroyed. If I can repair it, we can bring back magic." The mercenaries exchanged glances. Doran, still shaken by his earlier encounter with the altar, seemed less eager to press any more runes, but others were visibly intrigued. "And what's in it for us?" one of them asked, arms crossed. "You're talking about power, real power. We can't just let you control it all." Ryan didn't flinch. He knew this would be a sticking point. "I don't want to control it. If the magic returns, it's going to belong to everyone. But we have to be careful. The wrong hands could turn this into something far worse than what the gods left behind." Doran scoffed. "You sound like a priest." "Powers never shared, Ryan. You know that. Sooner or later, someone's going to want to take control. Why not us?" Ryan met his gaze, unblinking. "Because if we misuse it, we risk losing everything. Magic is volatile, and we don't fully understand how it works anymore. My goal is to restart the flow, not hoard it. If you want wealth and power, you'll find plenty after we succeed. But I need your help to get there." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, to Ryan's surprise, Elena spoke up. "He's right. We've all seen what the world's become without magic, broken, struggling, a shadow of what it once was. If we can bring it back, maybe we can fix some of that. Maybe we can make things better." Ryan shot her a grateful look. He hadn't expected her to come around so quickly, but Elena had always been pragmatic. She understood the stakes. Doran grumbled something under his breath but finally nodded. "Fine. But if this goes sideways, I'm not going down with you." Ryan suppressed a grin. "Fair enough. Now, let's get to work." Over the next several days, Ryan and his team set up camp in the temple, working tirelessly to decipher the inscriptions, repair the fractured crystal, and reassemble the ancient mechanisms that once controlled the flow of magic. The work was grueling, and the temple's age showed in every cracked stone and broken rune. But piece by piece, Ryan could feel the magic stirring beneath the surface, like a beast waking from a long slumber. Late one evening, after hours of painstaking effort, Ryan stood alone in the main hall, staring at the repaired conduit. The crystal now glowed faintly, its once jagged fractures smoothed over by the delicate work of his hands. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable. He just needed one final push. The others had already retired for the night, exhausted from their labors. Ryan remained, unable to leave the conduit alone for even a moment. He knew what had to be done, but the weight of it settled heavily on his shoulders. If he activated it, there was no going back. Magic would return, chaotically, unpredictably. The world would be changed forever. And though Ryan had tried to plan for every possible outcome, the truth was, he didn't know what would happen. Taking a deep breath, he placed his hands on the crystal. The cold surface hummed with potential, a reservoir of power waiting to be unleashed. For a second, he hesitated. But then, memories of his childhood, of his mother's healing touch, of the life that had once filled the world, flooded his mind. This was it. The moment everything changed, with a surge of determination, Ryan spoke the ancient words he had spent years deciphering. The language of the gods was alien, harsh, and difficult to pronounce, but it carried an undeniable weight. As the final syllable left his lips, the crystal flared to life. A torrent of energy rushed through the temple, filling the air with a crackling hum. The ground beneath Ryan's feet trembled, and for a terrifying moment, he thought the entire structure might collapse. But then, the tremors subsided, and the glow of the crystal steadied. Ryan stumbled back, breathing heavily. The conduit was active. He could feel it, magic, wild and powerful, coursing through the air like an invisible tide. It wasn't the same as the magic of old. This was something new, something reborn. Outside, the world responded. The long-dead trees surrounding the temple began to sprout fresh leaves. The dry riverbeds nearby filled with water once more. The sky, long shrouded in a dull gray haze, cleared to reveal a bright, starlit expanse. Magic had returned. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the transformation unfold. This was what he had worked for, what he had dreamed of. But there was a part of him that couldn't shake the fear of what he had unleashed, of what might come next. He wasn't alone in his concern. The next morning, as the others emerged from their tents, they too felt the shift in the air. Elena was the first to speak, her eyes wide with awe. It's back." Ryan nodded, his expression grim. "Yes. But we need to be careful." Doran snorted. "Careful? You just brought magic back to the world. What could go wrong?" As if on cue, the ground shook violently beneath them. Ryan barely had time to shout a warning before a massive figure burst through the trees. A towering beast, its body a twisted amalgamation of stone, wood, and magic, lumbered toward the temple, its eyes glowing with a feral intensity. "Get back!" Ryan shouted, grabbing Elena and pulling her behind a fallen pillar. The beast roared, its voice shaking the very air around them. It was a manifestation of the magic, a creature born from the sudden surge of power that now flooded the land. And it wasn't friendly. Doran and the other mercenaries drew their weapons, but Ryan knew it wouldn't be enough. Magic had returned, but with it came the dangers of a world that had long been dormant. The balance had shifted, and they were now facing the consequences. "We have to stop it," Elena yelled, her eyes locked on the beast. Ryan's mind raced. The conduit, the core. They had restored the flow of magic, but they hadn't yet learned how to control it. The beast was a byproduct of their recklessness, and it wouldn't stop until it had destroyed everything in its path. There was only one solution, and Ryan knew what it would cost. "I have to shut it down," he said, his voice firm despite the chaos around them. Elena's eyes widened. "You can't. We've come too far. If I don't, more of these creatures will come. The world isn't ready for this, at least not yet." With a heavy heart, Ryan ran back to the altar. The crystal still glowed, pulsating with the magic it had unleashed. If he severed the connection now, the magic would retreat, but the price would be high. It could be years, decades, or even centuries before anyone dared to try again. But Ryan knew there was no other choice. As he reached for the crystal, he whispered a silent apology to the world. Then, with a final, decisive motion, he deactivated the conduit. The light dimmed. The air grew still. The beast, moments away from destroying the temple, stumbled and collapsed, its body crumbling to dust as the magic drained from it. Ryan sank to his knees, exhausted. Magic was gone. Again, Elena approached him, her expression unreadable. Why? After everything we did, he looked up at her, his face lined with fatigue. The world wasn't ready. But one day, it will be. And when that day comes, we'll know how to use it. The temple fell silent around them, the ancient walls bearing witness to yet another ending. But this time, Ryan didn't see it as a failure. He had learned the truth. He had felt the magic, even if only for a fleeting moment, and one day, he knew, it would return again.